Hello everyone. Welcome to the second session of the course Angular and Bootstrap. Today we will focus on Angular components and the Bootstrap grid system. You will learn how to create modular reusable components in Angular and how to design responsive layouts using Bootstrap. What is a component in Angular? Angular components are the core building blocks of any Angular application. Every view you see in an Angular app is controlled by a component. A component is modular and reusable, allowing us to break down the application into small, manageable parts. Each component consists of three main parts: the template, which controls what the user sees, the class, which contains the logic and functionality, and the styles, which define how the component looks. Anatomy of an Angular component. Let's break down the structure of a component. The template is the HTML code that defines the component's view. The class is the TypeScript code that contains the logic, such as event handling and data management. And finally, the styles define how the component looks, similar to regular CSS. Angular allows us to define these parts either inline or in separate files for better organization. Creating a new Angular component. Using Angular CLI, we can generate a new component with the command ng-generate component name. This will create a folder with four files: an HTML template, a TypeScript class, a CSS file for styles, and a test file. Once the component is created, we can integrate it into our application by adding it to a module and using it in our apps. Introduction to Bootstrap grid system. Now let's talk about the Bootstrap grid system. The grid system is the core of Bootstrap's responsive design. It divides the page into a 12-column grid, allowing us to create flexible layouts that adjust to different screen sizes. By defining rows and columns, we can control how our content is displayed on large, medium, small, and extra small devices. Basic Bootstrap grid layout. To create a basic layout, we first define rows using div class is equal to row, and then divide the row into columns using classes like div class is equal to col. Bootstrap allows us to control how many columns are used on different devices. For example, col MD6 defines a column that takes up 6 of the 12 columns on medium sized screens. On smaller devices, we can use col SM12 to make the column take up the full width of the screen. Combining Angular components with Bootstrap layout. We can easily combine Angular components with Bootstrap's grid system by adding Bootstrap classes to our component templates. This allows us to organize the content inside each component in a responsive manner. For example, we can create a simple web page layout by using Bootstrap's grid system to divide the page into sections and place Angular components inside each section. This makes it easier to manage the layout and ensures that our app looks good on all devices. Practical demo. Creating a layout with Bootstrap grid. Let's move on to the practical demo. We will create a new Angular component for our layout and use Bootstrap's grid system to arrange content in a responsive way. We will start by defining rows and columns in the components template, then use Bootstrap's classes to control how the layout adjusts on different screen sizes. This will give you a hands-on experience with integrating Bootstrap's layout system with Angular components. In this session, we learned that components are the core of Angular applications and they allow us to break down our app into smaller, reusable parts. We also explored Bootstrap grid system, which is essential for creating responsive layouts. Together, Angular and Bootstrap give us the tools to build flexible, scalable web applications. In the next session, we will dive deeper into Angular's data binding and templates. Thank you.